Hey guys, my name is Kristin and I'm the Grow Pastor at our McKinney campus. I'm so glad that you're here to spend a few minutes together doing a daily Devo together. I'm going to share one of my very favorite scriptures with you. It is a verse for me that as a child I heard it, but then as I started, growing up, I just see it through a different lens as many different roles of being an adult have happened. I'm going to share that with you. And so I know this last few months have looked different for all of us, regardless of who you are. It's looked different for our children. It's looked different for us as parents, for us as corporate bodies. It just has looked so different. And so we've all had to take on a different role that maybe we weren't expecting to do, or maybe we're not that great at. And if you're anything like me, if it doesn't work out to be perfect, it is hard. I am such a control freak. I am such a perfectionist that when I put my mind to something, I really put forth a plan that I think that it should happen that way. And when it doesn't happen that way, I get so down on myself. I start thinking things that aren't true about myself or things that people around me, and it's just not okay. And so over the last year, one of the verses that I started to study, I started going back through the book of Daniel and looking at verses in a different way, and looking at the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and also the story of Daniel just through a different light, through a light of surrender, through a light that says that I'm not in control, that at the beginning of the day, I need to resurrender each day. And that's hard. That's really hard. If you're like me, a perfectionist, or even if you're not like me, we all kind of want things to go a certain way. And when they don't, we get upset sometimes, depending on what it is. And so it's hard. And so I'm going to go into Daniel 3. It's the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And if you're not familiar with it, what had happened was King Nebuchadnezzar, he had put Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in charge of Babylon. And so he'd also made a statue that at the sound of trumpets each day, or a few instruments together, they were supposed to bow down and worship the statue. Well, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were like, we're not gonna do with that. We're not cool with that. So we only worship God. And Nebuchadnezzar is mad. He's furious. He brings them before him and he gives them another chance. And so we're gonna go into Daniel 3, 15. And he says, I will give you one more chance to bow down and worship the statue I have made when you hear the sound of the musical instruments. But if you refuse, you'll be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. And then what God will be able to rescue you from my power? And I love these next few verses. And so Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, Oh, Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves. And I love the tone here. And I kind of imagine them being like, okay, we don't need to defend ourselves. In 17, he says, if we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. And then here's verse 18. And I love these first few words. But even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up. Those first few words, but even if he doesn't, I want to challenge you to really kind of tape those words somewhere up, whether it's making a screensaver for yourself, whether it's putting a post-it note on your mirror, or dry erase, or whatever. But even if he doesn't, how many situations can we think of that we want them to go our way, or over the last few months are totally unexpected that they've gone a different way? We would have never guessed. I can think of the Friday of spring break, thinking we were going to go back to school, after spring break, we would take a trip somewhere and we would be back in school. It didn't happen that way. And those few words I've had to really implant into a lot of places of my life. Even if he doesn't, even if God doesn't do things the way I planned it, that doesn't change things for me. Like, I will still worship him and I will still praise him. I'll praise him in the ways that it's hard. I'll praise him when I feel like I can't, because at the end of the day, God is still good. I'm still blessed beyond all measure. And I go back to that where they say, even if he doesn't, right before that, he says, he will rescue us from your power, your majesty. And rescue there can be seen a couple of different ways. If they went into the furnace and they died, they'd be in heaven. But they choose to say, even if he doesn't. And that is such a cool few words there. And so I just want to challenge you that as you go about these next few months and we try to figure out what does life look like with this new normal, and we just try to be graceful with people and even our families, that even if things don't go the way we want them to, God is still good, and we're going to praise him in the midst of frustration or sadness and anger, and celebrate him too. Celebrate the things in our life that, hey, that didn't go like I wanted it to, but when I look back now, I can see what God was doing in my life. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys. I hope that encourages you guys. Tape that up somewhere, put it on your screensaver, whatever you need to do. But thank you guys for spending a few minutes with me. You guys have a wonderful week. I'm praying for you guys.